Welcome to the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, where you can take a deep dive to explore the pitfalls and potential of the obsessive-compulsive personality, offering hope and help for perfectionists, workaholics, micromanagers, type A personality, and control freaks. Hello, everyone. Gary Trosclair here, psychotherapist, Jungian psychoanalyst, and author of the Healthy Compulsive Project book, blog, and podcast. You're not alone. This phrase has become pretty common these days as a source of comfort. Yes, there are others that suffer with us and others that care about us. And these are good to know, but it's also helpful to have a sense that we are not at odds with the universe. We often create friction with the world through our compulsive perfectionism. Nothing's ever good enough, including the universe. It creates a baseline of anxiety that usually we aren't aware of. So in this episode, we'll explore how compulsive perfectionism creates alienation and look at the science which says connection is essential to our well-being. We'll also discuss practical ways to restore a sense of connection with nature and the universe for greater peace and well-being. So join me for episode 99 of the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, From Alienation to Connection, Healing the Spiritual Side Effects of Compulsive Perfectionism. I'm going to begin this episode with a very short quote from a poem by Maddie Weingast. This is from her poem, Meta Friend, and it can be found in her book, The First Free Women, Original Poems Inspired by the Early Buddhist Nuns. And here's the short quote. When the whole world is your friend, fear will find no place to call home. Recall that feeling you got when you first logged onto the internet. You finally figured it out, and then, whoosh, you were connected. What a relief. You could get information, email your friends, and find recipes for shrimp creole. Recall that feeling when all of your closest friends are together, having a great time, teasing each other, and agreeing that no matter how bad things get in the world, at least you'll all be in it together. You feel whole. Recall that feeling when you and Susie, at 13 years of age apiece, kissed under the big oak tree in the woods near your house. Magic. Now, imagine getting connected on a whole different level, not just to the internet, but to the entire universe. Bliss. Whether or not we can sense this connection makes a huge difference in our lives. And those of us who are compulsive or perfectionistic may inadvertently block it and experience alienation instead. Uh-oh, Gary's gone woohoo on us. Maybe so, but hear me out. What I'll suggest is a personally established empiricism, an individual evaluation of what leaves you feeling the best, alienation or connection. And I'm going to give you some background to help you make this decision. First, I'll sketch out the problem and put some limits on which aspects of connection we'll explore. Then I'll talk about why connection may be one of the most fundamental elements in our sense of well-being, and the science and culture supporting it. Then I'll talk about possible blocks to connection, and finally I'll suggest ways to cultivate connection. The connection I'll be describing runs the gamut from profound and transformative experiences to the gentle cultivation of a more friendly attitude to the natural world. Both are priceless. So first, the problem, compulsive perfectionism versus connection. Perfectionism distances us rather than connecting us. There's always something wrong with the world, so we give it the cold shoulder and go on our merry way. But this actually causes alienation, that vague but ever-present sense that we're at odds with the world around us and that it's a dangerous place. We don't belong and it makes us anxious. We act as if an imperfect world could never be our world. Instead, we buy a new phone, chat with AI, or join 5 dating apps. But our sense of separateness persists. It might seem like a reasonable thing to do to separate ourselves from the force that gives us hurricanes, earthquakes, and, my personal favorite, Arctic blasts. It's hard to make friends with the universe under these conditions, and instead we draw back. To our critical minds, it doesn't matter whether the universe caused the problems or not. When things aren't right, we unconsciously distance ourselves from it, getting further and further away over time. I won't contest that the universe can be a dangerous place, but that's not a reason to ghost it. First of all, that won't protect you, But more importantly, that distancing robs you of all the benefits of connection. Alienation ensues. I won't be able to explore the many reasons we distance ourselves in this episode because I want to focus on the effects of perfectionism. Perfectionism expresses itself in many ways, and we aren't always aware of the impact it has. Here are 4 reasons that I'll be focusing on perfectionism. 1, it's hard enough to connect to the universe without perfectionism getting in the way. 2, much of what's scary in the universe is caused by humans, not the universe itself. 3, perfectionism is within our control, typhoons or not. 4, the people who have gone through hell and come back and kept their souls intact have done it by connecting, not by becoming more critical. And I want to set one other limit to our discussion today. People. People who are compulsive, obsessive, type A, or perfectionist are more likely to focus on their difference with other people than what we have in common. Those differences imply that something is wrong or bad, so that's what we obsess about. How many battles have been fought over differences about the legitimacy of baptism by immersion rather than sprinkling? You could be excommunicated or even drowned for being on the wrong side of the debate. In contrast, whenever he comes across someone new, the Dalai Lama immediately looks for what he has in common with them. And he seems like a pretty happy guy to me, despite all the crises he's been through and all the responsibility he shoulders. While social connections certainly affect our sense of well-being and even how long we live, in this episode I'll be focusing more on whether we feel connected to the world around us, most obviously in nature, but also to the unseen, so that we can become aware of the problem and take steps to heal. So let's talk about potential benefits of connecting to the universe. What does connection feel like? The most common description of spirituality is a sense of being connected to something greater than ourselves. In this state, we transcend the isolation we often experience as humans. Here are some of the adjectives associated with a connection to something greater: awe, peace, belonging, inclusion, kinship, wholeness, attunement, alignment, and finally, coming home. There is scientific data to support the idea that a sense of connection to the world around you is key to your well-being. Transpersonal psychology, for instance, explores the impact of feeling connected to something greater than oneself, be it humanity, nature, or the cosmos. Studies show that individuals who report a sense of unity with the universe or nature tend to exhibit lower levels of stress, diminished depressive symptoms, and higher purpose in life. For example, David Yadin at the University of Pennsylvania conducted an overview of research on self-transcendent experiences, that is, those that having to do with unity, flow, and awe. And he found that experiences like this are associated with increased well-being and positive emotions. Their study supported the idea that when our sense of self transcends the individual and embraces a larger world, we are better off. Other scientists are onto this as well. The field known as environmental psychology has found that there are mental health benefits from feeling connected to nature. One study by Meyer and Franz found impressive links between a sense of being connected to nature and a sense of well-being. As I explored in a previous post, when we spend time in nature and feel a sense of belonging, we have lower anxiety and increased vitality. Our cultural record, the archetypal stories, myths, and literature that have been handed down for millennia and recreated afresh by each generation also tell us we're worse off when we lose our sense of connection and better off when we have it. Our penchant for control and independence, isolating ourselves from the flawed world, is also a form of perfectionism. Currently, you can find this theme in the streaming series Silo. 10,000 people live desolately inside a huge underground silo, believing that the world outside is deadly. To question this is forbidden. They have forgotten how their silo came to be, and they're at odds with the world around them. Like them, most of us are siloed today. The theme of having lost our way and our connection, without knowing it, is all around us. We prefer to believe that we're the driving force in our lives, perfectly in control. We see it in Jay in The Great Gatsby, believing his own fantasy about what he can control and what would bring him happiness. His belief that he could win Daisy through his own willpower and persistence shows how oblivious he was to the world around him. His isolation shows that he wasn't so great after all. We see it in Walter White from Breaking Bad when he convinces himself that his criminal activities are for his family's benefit when it's really clear that they're not. He likes to believe that he's a hero and can control it all on his own. They both live in their own world, and it's not a pretty one. And it's not just wayward Americans who experience this theme, it's universal. Jesus said, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." According to Hinduism, until we awake and see our original connection with the divine, we're lost. We're separated. In Greek mythology, Narcissus falls in love with his own reflection, thinking it's perfect, not knowing it's himself and not another. He's disconnected from everything else. According to Buddhism, there are 3 poisons: clinging, aversion, and ignorance. The ignorance they refer to includes ignorance of the fact that we are not separate from the rest of the world. Vietnamese Buddhist monk and peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized that the reality of the universe is interbeing. He explains that without clouds, rain, and soil, there would be no you. You're only made up of all these things that you usually consider to be not you, but you really interbe, to coin a verb, with everything else. Perhaps my favorite story about connection is Alan Watts' description of life as a cosmic game of hide and seek, where the divine forgets its true nature and dives into the material world so that it can experience the alienation of individuality, the depths of intense emotion, and the fulfillment of rediscovery. We imagine that we're separate from the divine, but there is no difference. You've done the hiding. Now it's time for seeking. Now we're going to talk about some pitfalls, the blocks to connection. If connection is so great, why are so many of us walking around like zombies? Here are just some of the reasons, all of which stem from a form of perfectionism. Cultural conditioning. Let's be perfectly rational. Our culture pays lip service to ideas about connection, but skepticism, wanting to be perfectly rational, leads us to disregard this wisdom. How could something so sloppily intangible, dubious, and ethereal make such a big difference? Common sense leads us to prioritize obvious things that we can wrap our obsessive heads around and concrete things we can sink our workaholic teeth into. If we can't see it, it doesn't exist. But common sense is not always good sense. Just because something is common doesn't mean that it's true or helpful. For instance, here are some beliefs that used to be common sense. The earth is flat, smoking is good for you, left-handed people are evil, and tomatoes are poisonous. I'm not suggesting that you give up your practicality. Quite the contrary. I'm suggesting that it's practical to adopt an attitude and a perspective that helps you to feel connected rather than alienated. The sense of connection that people used to feel has been replaced by a supposedly more rational perspective. Myth, spirituality, and religion used to help us to realize that we belong. But these days, we're far too smart and sophisticated for that, and we stand proudly in our gloomy isolation, which is not to say that we really are rational these days. We just rationalize what we feel safest with, as if it were rational. But connection implies loss of control to us, and we find that very scary. Invisible and intangible. A lack of connection is hard to detect. When I ask new clients what's most important to them, never has anyone said connection to the universe. And that says something. A sense of connection is basic to our well-being, yet we no longer value it. But ironically, the disconnection is so ubiquitous, we're unaware of it. There's no urgency to connect. It doesn't show up on our to-do lists, which are curated to make us perfectly efficient and productive. We are like the proverbial lobster in the pot of boiling water, which doesn't feel any urgency until it's too late and it's about to be featured on the dinner plate. Most of us can detect when we feel like we don't have enough social connection. But when we're disconnected from the universe, the experience is so pervasive and unconscious that it's like not being able to detect the air because we're awash in it. God and religion, perfectly connected or perfectly righteous. A sense of connection with God can fulfill this very human need for communion. But if it becomes me and God against the world, the potential benefits fly right through the stained glass window. Similarly, religion may celebrate the beauty and wonder of God's creation, or it may cast nature in the role of evil. Once again, you're alienated from the universe. Healthy perfectionism can help us cultivate a good relationship with God by investing in prayer and using restraint. Unhealthy perfectionism can hijack religion and lead to sanctimoniousness and rigidity rather than connection. The perfect curtains, substituting what's within your control for transcendence. Imagine that you're trying to find the perfect curtains for your new living room. You've scoured the internet, you've been to every store within 50 miles, and you've even thought of making them yourself. We may feel discontent, uneasy, unresolved, and anxious, not because we haven't found the perfect curtains, but because we see ourselves as separate from the world. You may think the problem is with the curtains, but it's really something much larger than that, and you've put the curtains in its place, blocking your view of the bigger picture. To switch the metaphor, it's like buying a used plastic-framed poster of Dolly Parton at a garage sale and thinking you've scored the entire Louvre. Perfectionism may lead us to believe that we transcend discomfort and this shabby world by becoming more perfect, or by making the world around us more perfect. On the contrary, the path to connection is the exact opposite of perfecting. When we accept ourselves as we are and the world as it is, we are more likely to transcend and connect. The curtains are just a distraction. They're easier to control, but very thin on benefits. Acceptance does not mean that things can't get better or that you actually approve of your morally deficient neighbor's scrappy window treatments. It just means that you aren't resisting present reality as if your life depended on it. Now let's talk about some ways to heal the side effects of compulsive perfectionism. I don't have a fantasy that the universe will take care of me, save me from paying taxes, protect me from avalanches while backcountry snowboarding, or get me upgraded to business class on a full flight to Seattle. But I also don't need to live in a fantasy that the universe is woefully deficient or out to get me. The challenges to experiencing connection don't mean we can't make progress and enjoy its benefits. Dramatically transformative experiences are great, but don't hold your breath waiting for them. You can get perfectionistic about transcendent encounters as well. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Here are some good places to start. Notice when you breathe that the air is part of you, and you are part of the air. Remember that everything you are made of came from the rest of the world. Make time to take a break from being a supposedly rational island unto yourself. Play. Forget about knowing and immerse yourself in curiosity and observation without having to figure things out. Stop being so thinky for a while. Start small and work your way up to the stars. Make friends first with your home, your neighborhood, and your town by appreciating the good. This takes dropping your perfectionism and overlooking what you might consider some pretty serious blemishes. Of course, it's easier to achieve union with the universe when you're standing atop the dramatic overlook at Angel's Landing in Zion National Park than it is when you're immersed in the gritty streets of Hell's Kitchen in New York. But it's no less valid or edifying. So practice these skills in the kids' bathroom, the grocery parking lot, and at a Rangers hockey game. I've been reading Sharon Blackie's book, The Enchanted Life, Reclaiming the Magic and Wisdom of the Natural World. She has some great suggestions that apply to our task at hand. She lists 4 major components of enchantment, which means fascination or delight, and conveys the opposite of alienation. 1. Participation. Live with an appreciation of our kinship with the world and cultivate a sense of oneness. 2. Wonder. Live with curiosity, amazement, and appreciation for the possible and the mysterious in life. This is best described as wow, with quiet exclamation points. Embodiment. Live with an awareness and acceptance of our bodies as part of the bigger body. Practice bodyfulness, which is similar to mindfulness, but encompasses the whole enchilada. 4. Mythic imagination. Name the stories you live by and notice which ones connect you and which ones separate you. For instance, is your story one of conquering in order to achieve control or connecting to be present to what is? And are these stories archetypal, part of a larger tradition lived and told by other humans for thousands of years? Communicate, the key to connection. As with any relationship, an important tool to achieve these goals is communication. Befriend the universe by talking to it in your mind as if it were your bestie from high school. Tell it stories. Don't worry, lots of people have done it for millennia and others still do it today. They just don't brag about it. Call it prayer or call it crazy. It works. You don't have to be religious in the traditional sense to get the benefits. I was on a hike last weekend and I tried it. Here's what happened. I told the trees how beautiful they were and that they're wearing some of my favorite colors. That's participation. I asked the sky how it had gotten so big. That's wonder. I noticed how good it felt to move my legs, breathe the fresh air, and place my feet on the trail. I told the trail and the air that I appreciated how soft and receptive they were. That's embodiment. I asked the huge rock outcroppings how their day was going and told them about my epic battles with the insurance company that week. I playfully framed it like I had been David fighting Goliath with my slingshot. That's mythic imagination. Anyway, no big surprise, none of them spoke back directly and verbally. They had all given up on speaking ages ago after watching us make fools of ourselves with words. But I could still feel them, and while they didn't talk back, talking to them still made a big difference in my mood and my ability to enjoy the hike. Yes, adopting such a nonsense attitude seems weird, but be an empiricist and try it. Turn things around and be perfectly non-rational. If nothing else, you may learn something about why you feel you need to remain disconnected. Or you may have a good laugh at my expense, which would be fine by me. These practices help us to feel more whole, complete, and less anxious, all of which feels much better than the stultifying suits of armor we usually walk around in, imagining that we're separate from the rest of the world. Participate, wonder, embody, imagine. Drop the perfection and only connect. You can find transcripts of this podcast with links to research sources and lots more at the Healthy Compulsive blog, www.thehealthycompulsive.com. If you'd like to subscribe to the Healthy Compulsive podcast, hit that subscribe button. And for a thorough guide to cultivating the positive potential of the compulsive personality, find my book on Amazon, The Healthy Compulsive, Healing Obsessive-Compulsive Personality Disorder and Taking the Wheel of the Driven Personality. And if you find any of these helpful, let others know by leaving a review. Till next time, enjoy the drive.